Hey everyone, and welcome to the Perfect Bite podcast, your fusion of food and entrepreneurship. You'll hear stories from chefs, restaurateurs, CPG brands, and more from the food and bev industry. All of them are at different points in their journeys, talking about their experiences and how they've cooked up something new. Let's dig in. Welcome back to the Perfect Bite podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Perkins. It's hard to believe I met today's guest about 15 years ago in our co-ed business fraternity. And with his venture, I can promise you our sipping choices from 2010 to now have gotten a lot more sophisticated. Josh has always been so cool, and now he's making the coolest and coldest canned chai around. Please welcome founder of Sinwise Farms, Joshua Chemparathy. Hi, Josh.
How are you?
I am so good. Again, I am so happy to see you. It's amazing to have social media to connect us not only far away, but just over time. And you can see old college buddies and what they're up to. And you've been making a splash. You've been doing such amazing things.
Yeah, thank you. And how we're changing over time. I can't believe it's been 15 years. That's kind of wild.
I know. I'm like, no, I'm 22. What are you talking
Right.
about?
Yeah, when do you let that go? I think it's now, right?
I don't
Or for
know.
me.
I don't
Yeah.
know. There's always that adage is, you always are as young as you feel. So as long as we keep
Mhm.
taking care of ourselves, then, we
Mhm.
can hopefully still hold on to those days a little bit.
Mhm.
But anyway, I'd love to dive back actually even further than 15 years ago. I always love
Okay,
to start at the beginning with everyone. Let's
sure.
talk about when you first fell in love with food. Tell us about the favorite foods that you had as a kid.
I mean, when I fell in love with food was probably when I was very, very young. I mean, my first memories are in Kerala, South India. So kindergarten, first grade is when I had my first developed and consistent memories. And I happened to be in
Mm.
India at that time. And my grandparents were farming. So I had a lot of access to just real food that was in the farm, like papayas, bananas. We didn't have pineapple at the time, but we had coffee, cocoa growing in the backyard, lots of coconuts just falling. And that was always something you had to be aware of. Like you just didn't hang out underneath coconut trees, like that was not kosher. And so just having all that access, I think made me appreciate and love food, all that fresh food as well. The memory that came to mind when you asked that question was like making my first omelet at like
Mm.
I think first grade, I
Wow.
was in first grade. It wasn't by myself totally, but I was like in charge of it and just remember finding the joy in that. And it was over a fire in the kitchen. That's the stove that they had at that time. And I just remember being, in coconut oil, like very weirdly, like very distinct memories of that, just making that omelet and have made many, many eggs since that time. But I think just having access to eggs and just seeing something transform into something edible and
Yeah.
enjoying that was just like such a positive experience that can't really give that up. And that, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably everyone's first love is eating, I would imagine,
Yeah.
right? So,
In some ways, right? Because think about when we were kids too, our palates, we were a lot pickier, or some of us were.
mm-hmm.
I was going to say,
Hmm.
you were having omelets in first grade. Like
Uh,
your palate was a little bit more sophisticated. You had access to all of this beautiful fresh produce. And
mhm.
I feel like I was just taken there with you. That was really visual. That was very like thought
Well, I was
provoking.
visualizing it too, so that's probably why. And yeah, I was never picky with food. I always loved eating, but I wonder if that had to do with just having more access
Yeah.
to fresh foods that were seasonal, that was just all around me. Or maybe it was that I didn't have a choice, really. It was like, this is what's here right now. Better eat this.
Yeah.
So
You're not getting the chicken tenders instead of this.
yeah, I didn't even know what chicken tenders were, We're truly in farm land. We didn't have a TV, like I wasn't getting hit with advertisements at that time. A little bit later on when I came back to the US in second grade, I think, and started like getting into the TV culture and things like that, like fourth, fifth grade. That's probably when I was like, let me get those Lucky Charms and
Right.
whatnot.
Yeah. Once you got exposed to it, but in some ways you had kind of this idyllic moment for a kid to just be a kid in that sense, where
Mhm.
you weren't tempted to just sit there, play video games, watch TV. You had to be outside and be with your family. And it just
Mhm.
sounds so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I spent my days with my grandfather. When I wasn't at school, I would spend time with him, and he was always in the farmland tending to the cow, moving it around. I know that like every hour, couple hours, you have to move the cow to be able to give it new grass to feed on. Like some memories I had was that cow gave birth to a baby cow, and I remember thinking it was fun to like hold on to the rope for the baby cow while my grandfather was holding on to the mother cow. Like
Oh
I
my
remember
God.
even then thinking that's like fun, and like I have a cow for me or whatever, but that mom cow did not like that and tried to like run me over. So I did spend a lot of time with him in the fields. Like I played with a stick, like that was my toy. And my
And your
parents don't like, but
imagination.
yeah. Oh, 100%. It was 1000% imagination based. You can make a stick, a sword, a walking stick, a direction pointer, a lightsaber. This was a little bit older, still playing with
Yeah.
sticks.
I love
Lots of
that.
fun.
Your farm sounds very interesting. So, my grandparents also have a farm. So, I grew up going to it. But again, middle of Illinois, that's corn and soybeans. It's not as much fresh produce. And I can
Mm-hmm.
attest, cows can get really mad and mean. There were
Mm-hmm.
black Angus cattle, and they
Uh,
always looked like they were ready to charge. And we would be in the pickup truck helping move them around the timber so that they could
mm,
eat in different places.
cool. I didn't
So,
know that.
this is why I'm excited to do this with you because I think when you're in college too, you don't get the chance to really sit and talk about things that mattered from childhood as, when you're a kid and really get to know folks. At least for me, it was like escaping childhood and just focusing on what's it going to be like to be an adult.
Yeah, exactly. It was really, really focused on what it's like to be an adult and really defining yourself. And SEU is a monoculture. And so you're trying to fit into
Yeah.
a round hole or whatever it is. And I think within, growing up and understanding that experience a lot more, you're trying to fit into something versus trying to learn who you are and express that in itself rather than, yeah, just trying to fit in or fit into whatever that situation is.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about that. So, again, we met at Santa Clara University. We were both lucky enough to be out in the Bay Area. I know you grew up there, but it was
Mm.
my, again, escape from the Midwest for a bit. And very early on, both joined Alpha Kappa Psi, which is a co ed business fraternity. And for folks who aren't as aware, the difference was yes, we had bonding, and yes, we had fun times together, trips, dances, things like that. But we were really focused as well on philanthropy, as well as really understanding skills that I was very happy over time to recognize, hey, I picked this up there in
Mm.
terms of how to network, how to properly connect with folks, the interview skills that we learned. I did appreciate about Santa Clara that even though I'm not Catholic, never grew up Catholic, they did try to focus on community in some sense when you were in the business
Mm.
school. And it wasn't just about hard numbers. There was a sense of giving back too. So
Mm-hmm.
that was some of my take, but I want to hear a little
For
bit
sure.
more about how you felt during that time and what you were thinking you were going to do with life, how that really shaped you.
Yeah, such an easy question, Sarah. Yeah.
I know.
Huh.
I'm like, I do come up with some really interesting, thought provoking thoughts sometimes.
I mean, I went into Santa Clara trying to do like the hardest thing, and that was kind of my focus. So I came in
Mm,
to the engineering school, and that's kind of when I started AKSI. And
yeah,
so I always had in my mind, and it's still TBD if this is actually true, but business aptitude or desire at least.
right.
And being in the engineering school, I was worried that I wouldn't stay connected to that. I would just be lost in whatever the engineering stuff was. So that's why I kind of joined the business fraternity. And I think I totally agree with you in the sense of it was a good group of motivated. It didn't need to be a fraternity. I don't think so. It could have just been a business group. Like I think
Yeah.
there's different formats that this thing could have existed as. But having a group of people that I could learn from, especially who are older, that could review my resume and
Yeah.
just having that language or coordination with a group of other people who are very motivated. I wasn't really defined on what my path would be. I ended up failing out of engineering into economics. And I still ended up doing engineering outside of college anyways, but I started out with like biomedical engineering, and I
Ooh,
hate chemistry. I have a little bit of dyslexia, and biology is all memorizing. And that was not for me.
yeah, that would not be
Uh,
for me either. Mm-mm.
yeah, yeah. And I realized coming out of high school and going into college, especially out in college, that it's all this is kind of lonely lab work. It's not really like collaborative kind of stuff. And I really
Yeah.
enjoy collaborating. That said, I am running a business more or less by myself. So that's not totally my day to day at all, but hopefully back to collaborating in the future. It
Yeah.
was really good to be aware of and reminded of what the options are in the real world versus classes themselves were great. And I think the amazing part of Santa Clara is like the classes would be like 15 people
Oh,
max.
yeah.
And that's like just great for somebody who can space out really easily. So I really absorbed a lot of information being in these small classes, but it was still very academically focused versus being in a group of people who were like, okay, how do we take this cool stuff and get a job, you know? And that was kind of what people were focused on from the very beginning. And I think that gave me a huge edge, at least like getting internships from freshman summer, sophomore summer from the very beginning and like building myself up instead of graduating and then starting that process of what should I do?
Yeah. Those are all such good points. I also appreciate there is such a big maturity difference as well from 19 to 22, right?
Mhm.
It felt like
They
these
all
are the
look like
big
babies to
kids.
me now, but yeah, yeah.
I know I look back at those photos and I'm like, oh God, I'm a child. But like you said, there was a sense of mentorship and understanding how to get internships or how to connect with folks so that you can find a project or the next thing was so important. And it isn't taught in classrooms typically. I think now there's an entrepreneurship major at Santa Clara, but I actually don't remember that during our time there. Of course, I was a marketing major and an English minor, so I had my business classes, but I just don't remember any sort of push that they're clearly now doing. There's even a fund that they've been working on, essentially a small accelerator for
Right.
Broncos. So always figuring out how I can somehow get involved in that in the future.
Right. And I think there was something entrepreneurship based at that time, but I mean, we're talking about when we came in, Bay Area was very entrepreneurial and has been for a long time, but this was kind of the peak of Facebook or like
Yeah.
the starting of Facebook as a real corporation, I think is probably 2009, 2010, around then, right? At least that's my perception about this school. Yeah, they're doing a lot to try to
Yeah.
build that up. Yeah.
And I'm just so happy and proud and sending so much love for all the founders that have actually come out of our business fraternity that we knew. We're seeing people with acquisitions and just killing it. And
Cool.
even some others like me who have dabbled and said, I'm going to move on. I'm going
Same.
to go focus on some other things. You're still in it. And that's what I'm excited for us to talk about the growth you've had. But it's like you said, it's that Bay Area hustle as well. And almost that sense that you don't have to go down a singular path. You can really choose what's right for you. What can you do to give back through the work that you're doing? So tell me a little bit more about post Santa Clara. Where did you end
Sure.
up for your career for a while? And what was that impetus that you were like, hey, I think I might want to do my own thing? Your aha moment for Sinwise.
Right. I mean, near like my senior year at school, I took some programming classes and really loved that. And it felt like once I took some programming classes, I was like, oh, I love this stuff. Like, I love automating. I got a job doing finance systems. So I was very like economics, did some accounting
Yeah.
stuff because we knew so many accountants at that time. And so I kind of dabbled from engineering, tried some accounting stuff, learned some cool stuff, but didn't think that was like my career in any way. Ended up doing like financial systems, IT stuff because I love programming and just kind of kept doing data related work and kind of build
Mm.
up to data scientist kind of work and just was really enjoying that. But once COVID hit, I realized that programming all the time is just not how my brain works. I think I have slight dyslexia. That was like not fully confirmed, but like just the ability to stare at words all day and words that aren't really even English. They do speak a language and they say things, but it's not like reading a book was difficult, especially during COVID and you're just working all the time. And I just thought
Oh,
my
yeah.
life, especially moving forward to become like a top-notch engineer or a data scientist, would be working alone even more deeply, which is not of interest to me. There was an incident during COVID where it was all red skies in San Francisco because of the fires up
Yep.
north. And I just remember waking up and going to meetings. It was like at the height of COVID. I wasn't like fully stressed out about COVID, but I was like easing into it and finding like a new routine. And that kind of happened waking up and going into a meeting with the red skies and just being like, I have to ignore this, everything around me, and just like go back into a computer, and just finding that to be a experience that was disconcerting, or like my mind and body were like in totally different places in that moment. I just didn't like that experience. And so
Yeah.
I don't know if it was an aha moment in the sense of like, I don't think that working remotely and working like this is my style of work. I preferred in person. I preferred collaborating, figuring things out, solving problems, and like trying to build stuff together. That was really what I was focused on. And so just like COVID, and I think everyone had their own weird experience now. You know, it's 5 years ago, but it feels like the nothingness was yesterday.
Yeah.
And so that was really what pushed me in some sense. But this is like a parallel track, right? Like this is what was happening on emotionally for me. But in my mind at that same time, I love the work. I love the outcomes. I love supporting people. I love programming in the sense of like you can do like 10 million things in like 2 seconds. Just love that. Loved building architecture and infrastructure and was really focused on building things that were scalable. And that's something that being from the Bay Area, I don't want to oversubscribe to that, but that's something that they talk about a lot,
Yes.
especially in the 2010s era. It was all about scaling and things like that. And I took that really to heart in the sense of trying to build good foundations, build something that you can build a house on, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
it came into conflict with the other side of tech, which is just build anything now and build it quick because we don't know what will stick and we just need to iterate and try stuff. So if you're like somebody who is like really into craftsmanship and building a chair, it's also really hard to like build 1,000 different chairs and maybe one of these will scale and make 10 million of them,
Mm.
right? As somebody who's like,
Yeah.
should we use rounded corners or sharp corners? Those are not the questions you probably should be asking in the like, we need to just pump these things out to see what sticks kind of world. So there's just like things that really resonated with me and the things that I just didn't gravitate towards. And then just like the general environment of the time frame as well. I had been working on helping my family with this business. They had been growing cardamom in India for many years. And it's just a thought that had
Mm.
been brewing since graduating college. So for many years since
Wow.
that I've been thinking about this. And so as I kept tapping away, it just started taking up more time to the point where it was like quite clearly like I couldn't do both. And that was really the transition point. I just couldn't make coffee and tea and can it and do this like in computer world and do this like real life world. And I just had to pick one. And I was like, let me try real life world for a little bit. And then that's kind of
Yeah.
led me to now.
It's almost like you're going back to your roots. Again, you said earlier, you didn't grow up with TV. You didn't grow up with just constantly being online. And it's like your heart said, we need to go back to the start here. And that's truly, again, you said brewing, and I was like, pun intended here, because we're now
Mhm.
you're now creating some really interesting products. Folks have seen canned cold brew before, but you're doing a canned cold brew chai.
Mhm.
Why do you think that you're one of the first or are the first to do this? And tell us a little bit about those first iterations when you were like, I got to try this out. Let's just try these recipes here.
It was, years of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was like, I have access to all these raw ingredients. I have access to this community. in India that I want to stay connected to. Well, like you're saying, I wanted to reconnect with my roots. I was
Yeah.
noticing that the typical corporate life, you have 2 weeks, if you have endless vacations, maybe 5 weeks on vacation a year, but still, if you go to India, you should be there at least 2 weeks to acclimate. And just saw that that was becoming more and more complicated to do and becoming less frequent. And that's what inspired me to go back and build this business. But it took me a long time to figure out that I wanted to can it. And a lot of that was just iterative process. I made the whole goal when I first started Sarah was to only be in 2 cafes. That was like my only goal with this. I
Yeah.
just wanted to be super tiny, just have something really boutique and something that I could be proud of and just like enjoy, right? But once you need to get the permits and get the legal stuff done, you're like, okay, how do I make up all this monthly cost of going into a commercial kitchen to do this? You're like, okay, I need to be way bigger than 2 cafes. Like, this is not going to work for that. And so it just kind of started escalating. I would make concentrate and give that to people as test rounds. And I remember one experience, they said they liked it, and I asked them more about it, and they said they just drank the concentrate straight, and that's like supposed to be
Oh,
mixed with something else.
yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, I didn't give that good of instructions. So like it's on me. But like I learned it was good information for me to be like, this isn't obvious. Like I grew up with this. I don't see this in the US. I see it in every
Yeah.
cafe, but nobody knows what a chai really is. And so even though it's ubiquitous, nobody knows what it tastes like. So nobody knows what to expect versus like making coffee. Everyone in the US has lived with that their entire life. They know what a pour over is, if I say that, right? Like there's an image that comes to mind. They have like a milk coffee concept in there, like there's all these things, but chai is like something just different that
Yeah.
there's no context. So just seeing that, I gave somebody else some concentrate and they poured like, I told them, I was standing next to them and I told them pour 50% milk and 50% of this concentrate and try it out. They did like 95% concentrate and 5% milk. And I was like, okay, I'm standing next to
Interesting.
this person. Yeah, I'm standing next to this person and I'm giving them instructions on doing this and they won't follow it. And so I think it was not a good experience. That's not the product I was putting out there. So I was like, okay, people really don't have a context of how this should taste.
Right.
They're following their own routines of how they make coffee and doing their creamer and whatever. I need to create something to build a context so that I can open the market for chais in the US for non-South
Yeah.
Asians, right? Because this is like a little too new for people here. So I was like, let me make it fully and give it to them. And that's where it all kind of started snowballing.
That's awesome. I love that you did have essentially user testing. Again, if we want
Yeah.
to compare this even to building a tech product,
Right.
there are so many times that software team, developers, and a founder will go back and forth because the founder will say, well, I think it should have all these bells and whistles. Why don't you guys have the most simple thing out of it? And so you, in real time, got to see how do I simplify
Mhm.
this process? And again, make this something that is easy, accessible, and delicious. Tell us a little bit more too, when you started canning, what the difference is for a South Asian chai, as you say, and the chai that Americans are grabbing at, say, a Starbucks.
I mean, that is a loaded question for me because I think the main difference is the quality of the tea and the
Yeah.
understanding of there is not a trope, but a common saying amongst South Asians. It's like, it's chai, not chai tea, if that's like saying tea or something like that.
Yeah.
And I find that to be kind of annoying. I don't really care if people say chai tea, but there is some truth to chai means tea. It actually means that your drink should taste like tea, not
Mm.
something else, not milk or cinnamon. And I think the understanding in the US is that chai means spices. And so there is a slight difference in understanding of what the core product actually is. That being said, like you do need to meet people in the middle. I'm not here to replicate or recreate something that is traditional somewhere else. And chai is still a relatively new beverage, even if it is traditional in India. It's came from the British, was augmented and spread throughout India. So it's not like millennia old, but still it's like has a deep tradition there. But I'm trying to create my own version of that and still following the perception of the US. Like I will add more spices and there's spice forward tea versus South Asians. Like in Kerala, we like just milk tea. I grew up enjoying cardamom with my milk tea and some ginger. So like everyone drinks it a little bit differently. There's no like singular experience for this. So yeah, I think that's one big difference. And then even my beverage versus South Asians, like no one's drank a chai cold. Like that's not even a concept. Like that doesn't make sense to South Asians. And I think part of that is like making a cold chai is difficult. It's not very easy. And you can really find out the quality of a chai if you have it hot and then cool it down. Usually it tastes bad. And it's probably because the original chai was very good. And that's probably like a very radical thing to say. But like if your hot chai is amazing and it cools down and tastes bad, it probably wasn't that good. But that's my
that's a
own
good
personal
point.
hot take. Yeah.
The literal hot
But
take here on the chai.
yeah. So there's been a lot of learnings in creating my own product and finding it in my own way and making it easy to drink, easy to consume. Shelf stability is way easier when it's cold versus like ambience or just like lots of little trade-offs. But I'm trying to strike something in between, like authentic to what the product means, which is supposed to be tea forward. I do a coffee as well. I'm trying to do South Asian beverages using authentic ingredients from the area predominantly and single origin as much as I can, while still doing it in my own way and having fun with it. So like paying homage, but just taking it in my own direction as well.
Yeah. That's a really interesting process that you described too, in that it sounds like cold brew, you have to be the most amazing craft version of chai so that you can really taste those flavors. And like you said, they don't go bad after that process.
Mhm.
Did you know how to cold brew before, or was this
No,
kind of your first foray into it, your first experiments?
yeah, first experiments, and it's kind of crazy. I had been testing out cold brewing. It was just the simplicity, the equipment required was just like way less. I could scale it for my small size a little bit easier than trying to hot brew on a stove and pouring it out and all of that kind of stuff. But besides like using jars and putting it into the fridge and learning through that process, I didn't know until really trying to grow it. And even within the last year, I think I've made like leaps and bounds of understanding cold brew and just have appreciated the versatility of that way of brewing and still like exploring all kinds of stuff. I'm been doing tea through espresso machines and I love that taste, but that's like a very specific way of brewing. I've been doing freeze drying and making it into powders and stuff like that and testing out that kind of stuff. So there's lots of explorations of like how I want to brew it and how I want to continue like building my expertise and like helping me make the best product and augmenting my product with all these learnings as I've been doing it. And continuing down this journey of like somebody who didn't know how to cold brew, which is kind of like the easiest way to do something, easiest way, quote unquote, to make coffee, taking that and augmenting that and doing that for chai, which is like unheard of. And then like taking that even a step further and doing like more sophisticated cold brew-esque brewing and becoming an expert in that. And that's like really
Yeah.
cool to me to be like this, like, I'm going to say it, but I'm going to regret saying it, like this world expert in chai brewing.
Let's say
You
it.
know? Yeah, I'll
Everyone
say
heard
it
it here first. Let's do it.
in my
Claim
own way. I
it.
know. Yeah. Well, if you put me next to like a street chai person, like they're gonna cook me like any day. But you know, in my own way, I make some really cool chai.
Good and different. Let's say
Yeah,
that.
it fits.
I can totally see your engineering brain coming into play as you were talking
Hmm.
about that, of the different
Hmm.
versions that you've tried here. Now, what's it been like to work with the ingredients from the family farm? And your whole family has been in on this too, right?
Hmm. It's been difficult. Yeah, it's not easy.
No, it's
Uh,
not. There's a lot of balance.
it's a lot of balance. Part of that is like coming from India, and this is my in progress thinking. There is a lot of colonial history here. It is a place that has been extracted from, and in a sense like I am another entity that is extracting potentially from the community. I like to think that I'm adding value, and I
Yeah.
there are moments where I thought I was extracting, but I do actually believe, especially now, that I'm bringing quality standards, standardizing, helping educate people there on the ground of like how to process things, how to pack things, how to export things, and how to like really show care for this stuff versus treating everything like a commodity and just looking for price and competing against the world. I think the beauty of the coffee space, even though there's a lot of weird stuff in it, is that if you treat coffee well, people will pay a good price for it. It's just that it's hard to do that. It's easy to just treat it like anything else and just get pennies on the dollar for it versus spending the time to be like, we're going to pick only the ripe cherries from the tree and then we're going to make sure that it's kept separate and we're going to sort it out well and pack it right away versus like just keep it in a pile and whoever gives the best price will sell it to them. You know, that's kind of the old standard versus now. So a lot of that has been difficult, like establishing those in a place, but in a new area, in a sense, in a place that's not well defined. In some ways, I am able to get organic ingredients, but like I'm not getting something that's pre-labeled. I'm not working with stuff that is label based, claims
Right.
based foods, right? I'm actually trying to go to a place, find the raw ingredients and improve those raw ingredients year after year. And I see the impacts on my final product. So it's a very long process. It's very back to the roots, kind of like what you said in the beginning. And it makes it so that it's kind of a lifelong journey, I want to say, and not a like, we need 50 grams of protein in this, or,
Yeah.
like I'm not really doing that. I'm trying to like be very authentic to the ingredients, but that comes with time and effort.
And
Like immersive,
cost.
like, yeah, for sure, cost. Yeah.
It's interesting that you two are balancing the sense of I'm not trying to poo poo on a tradition. You're saying I want to celebrate it and I'm doing it just in a little bit of a different way so that more folks can enjoy it and be educated.
And
Go
build
ahead.
off of that in the sense of like, there's two routes you can take. I had this incredible opportunity of being from a place that grows all of these tea, coffee, spices, pepper, cardamom, nutmeg, all these tropical fruits. Like all these things are available at this one place. And that's really great. But I didn't have the opportunity of being like, this is the world's highest rated coffee.
Right.
Like, this is what people pay, $10,000 for a pound of, or whatever these crazy prices are for a pound of.
Yeah.
I had to be like, I value these ingredients and how do I bring the best out of them? And that's really giving me a lot of humility and, like appreciation for the $4,000 a pound things, but things that people disregard or ignore. There's so much beauty and amazingness to them that when everyone is focused on the top prize, they ignore all the amazing stuff around them. And even though it's a lot more work, I'm able to uncover this kind of gold and like kind of showcase that and express that. I think that's kind of what I'm aiming for.
That's beautiful. You're really honoring it. You're
Mhm.
honoring, again, multiple things. A tradition from your country, your family's tradition of the farm, and you're honoring, the earth. I know that sounds a little woo-woo, but
Mhm.
I have a lot of these conversations on this podcast about just going back to the earth, focusing on whole ingredients, and they're truly the best ones. And
Mhm.
it's nice to see maybe our generation and beyond are trying to go back to that a little bit more of we just want to know where our food comes from. And
Yeah.
I think you do just such a beautiful job, not only in the ingredients and all the hard work that you put behind them to grow them and cultivate them for this, but your storytelling has been incredible as well. And I think that's what's really going to also stand out for you.
Yeah. And hopefully I tell the story better. I haven't expressed all these things, but there's just so much going on. One day I'm like, we didn't do X paperwork on the export. We're gonna get hit with a $500 fine. Put that in. Oh, I have 1 hour to unload this 20,000 pound or 30,000 pound shipping container of tea by hand because if we put in pallets, we would have delayed the shipment by 4 more weeks. And luckily, we didn't do that. And we're, there's just
Yeah,
like so many things going on where I'm like, I'm not focused on social media storytelling at all. I just am trying to make it to the day after tomorrow. But there is a lot of story here. There is a lot of thinking that's gone behind it. And I'm excited to start sharing that moving forward. Yeah,
Yeah, this is only the start for sure.
for sure.
So, again, you've got a physical product. My startup I did, again, dealt with physical products in the sense that there was a lot of shipping and logistics involved, not
Mm-hmm.
as heavy as yours, but
Mm-hmm.
I think people just need to give a lot more props to any entrepreneur who's ever had to work with a physical product because at the end, like you're the delivery driver, you're the one loading and unpacking things, you're the one doing a lot of manual work behind it
Mm-hmm.
too, as well as, okay, how can I, like you said, figure out how to deal with today's problems versus tomorrow's problems? How am I
Mm-hmm.
the accountant, the COO, the CEO, and sometimes, the publicist and the face of this? It's a lot of different hats to wear.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you feel like you're balancing it all?
Yeah, it's a good question. I am not balancing it all. I just choose not to do what I don't need to do. And until something gets pressing, I don't do it. That's really how it functions, you know? And I think what really drives me is the excitement of doing it, the excitement of being able to nerd out on this. You know, I think any 100 people could have made chai, will make chai, and every
Yeah.
one of those 100 people will find something else to nerd out on. One person might be more into the marketing side of things or
Right.
whatever. I just dove deep into coffee, studying coffee. I went to Brazil and did
Oh, wow.
processing of coffee there and learned about fermentation of the coffee and was able to apply that to the coffee that we harvested this past year and did co-ferments and all kinds of cool stuff like a Koji coffee and a Koji Robusta coffee and all these cool things. Like that's what I really nerded out on. And you mentioned it as well. There is an engineering component or science component of that. And there's like full engineering side of like building a brewing system and how do I scale this and what equipment do I need to be able to do this, or should I even be doing this myself, or can somebody else do
Right.
it? And flipping and finding where I fit into this whole thing and finding those components where I find joy, it helps me drive this whole thing and just finding joy in it overall anyways, and finding it to be a privilege and yeah, not really caring if it flops because I don't really care, to be honest. And I don't know what flop means,
Right. I don't know if
whatever
there's
it
real
means.
failure unless you say it's
Yeah.
failure.
Well, I mean, I think anyone would say shutting down the business. We could say a barometer might be shutting down the business. And if you're talking to me in 2013 or 2012, like business Josh, I would be very harsh.
Yeah.
I'd be like,
This
oh,
better
total
be
failure. Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, you didn't make it in 1 year. Like, you're not a millionaire. Like, shut it down. Move on to the next thing. That's obviously the right answer. But like in some worlds, that is the right answer, right? In a very curt way. But when you enjoy something so much, it like those things don't even matter at some point. It's like
Yeah.
you're just going through the steps and finding out what happens next because you're just amped about it. And there's also a level of like, I push this boulder down the mountain and I'm actually running in front of it and I better keep running. Otherwise it might crush me. I don't really want to find out what's going to happen.
I understand. It truly is. When they say a roller coaster, it is a constant roller coaster. It's sometimes like multiple hills in a day
Hmm.
of your
Hmm.
emotions and just your mental health, in addition to, like we were talking about. And again, you'll get there of like delegating certain
Hmm.
tasks or certain elements. Like you mentioned, if you have a co-packer, if you have a co-manufacturer, that helps from those aspects. And you have grown in the sense that you have wholesale partners now.
Hmm.
Congrats on being in Whole Foods
Thank
in
you.
Northern California. I can't wait till you're out here in the Midwest. Let's go.
Yeah, hopefully soon. I'm making a pretty big transition that's with the name change, hopefully that from Sinwise Farms to Kathas, which
Okay.
means stories. So to start on
I
that
love
a
that.
little bit, Sinwise means learning through making mistakes and trying things out. And that was really college version of me was very, I didn't realize it at the time, but very perfectionist and very scared to try things out and wanted to try a lot of stuff, but was too afraid to approach it. And this
Yeah.
was my motivation to be like, who cares? Just do it. Just try something out. And I've learned so much through that process. And that's very analogous to farming. Farmers don't really know what's
Yes.
going on. They're living day to day. They're learning from their neighbors. They're just trying stuff out and then augmenting and approaching it differently the next time. Right.
Yeah.
But now that I've done a lot of that, I want Sinwise to transform into Kathas and be more set. We'll still be experimenting on the side, but this product, I think we've done enough experimenting. I really want to showcase and like
Yeah.
let it finally bloom, like really, really share that with people. I mean, that's going to come with that transition from oat milk to coconut milk in Kerala, means
Mm.
land of coconuts. And so it just felt like it aligned with the story a little bit better. And so these kind of things, it'll, the name change and just telling the stories of the farmers and the ingredients and where it's coming from. I'm still figuring it all out, but that's kind of the transition that I'm trying to make as we move forward as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting. Oh, that is an incredible rebrand as well. Everything that we've said today is leading up to it. You're ready
Mhm.
for the story to unfold.
Yeah.
Even though,
Yeah.
again, you've been working on this for years, but this is how entrepreneurship works. Everyone thinks, hey, look at this big thing. And you're like, yeah, it's 10 years old already. And they're like, well, I just
Right.
heard of it. How is that possible?
Perfect.
Because it takes 5 to 10 years
hmm
to really
hmm
get out there.
I feel like people are fed this story, and maybe it's not fed, but we really celebrate overnight successes, right? Poppy sold, and this actually came out during that time, but they started out with a completely different name. I think they were like Mothers or something like that, and they were originally not like a health forward brand, right? That's all to say, like, I think we celebrate and think that this all happens overnight. And sometimes, like a lot of these blockbuster food brands, especially, they just have a lot of money. They're just spending it all. I mean, a lot of that is if you get enough penetration, it might stick. There's a strategy to that for sure. But most people are just slogging away at that, even though, like, a lot of the attention we get or we give are to the things that kind of splash, but they're paying for that attention, right? They're paying
Right.
for advertising, they're paying for magazines. But the brands that I notice that actually stay are the ones that are watching out for their costs, building year after year, trying things out and continually growing, right? That's kind of what I
Yeah.
want to do. And I watched my parents build their business. They have a liquor store. They've been doing it for, I want to say 30 years now. And I don't see a lot of businesses lasting that long unless it's like immigrant businesses. And immigrant businesses are like, this is our life. This is what we're doing. And we just make it work year after year. It's not going to look pretty or whatever, but we'll just keep at it and we'll be here for the long term. And I think that is what I kind of aim for. I draw a lot of inspiration from versus going full out, making the splash and then disappearing right away just because some metrics didn't get hit or something like that.
Yeah. It's very much the difference of, say, taking venture capital or private equity funds and being like, I work for other people now. I better grow, grow, grow as fast as possible. How quick can I get an amazing exit for everyone or an IPO?
Yeah.
Versus what I think there should be a lot of pride in as well is like the slog, as you said, and being there year after year and having a sense of stability. And
Mhm.
that is a much more strong foundation for business than, as we've seen, some of these, especially tech companies, like the crash and burn because they were told to grow as fast as possible, but they didn't have the strong foundation at the end of the day.
I've gained a lot of understanding for the crash and burn model.
Yeah.
It's just that for my business, I care too much about it. And it is something that I hold to my heart, like very closely. In terms of like the work that I'm doing and the people I'm working with, I work with my parents all the time, like every day, and that's harder to just throw away. I would never do something that I didn't care about, right? At the same time,
Yeah.
I don't want to glorify farm life because everybody in India, at least in Kerala, has been trying to get out of Kerala. It's getting too hot. The weather is like really hard to predict here, and like all the crops are like either going bad or suffering through heat waves or like it's really really tough, and so like those people are trying to get out as well. So there's nobody's, yeah, the grass is for
No one's
sure
happy.
greener everywhere. Yeah, yeah.
We're all just trying to stay alive right now.
I think there's less comparison potential, but everyone's on Facebook or Instagram now. Like the comparison is like out of control, so it's available
Yeah.
no matter how remote you are.
It's very true. And it's very hard in those situations when you're not having a real talk like this, real chat where you can open up that what's real, even. And that can happen a lot with some stories as well, told about founders and told by founders. And that's what I really wanted to go away from in this podcast in a
Hmm.
lot of ways is to celebrate the wins, but also talk about like, this is not easy. This is
Hmm.
not an easy choice, but at the end of the day, you're happy with your choice because it's focused on mission, it's focused on passion.
For me, like I'm like, if this hits a million, I'll be happy.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The way I think about it is I can always scale back to really small and just serve coffees for friends and families locally, and I'll be fine. The business will continue. I'll still be practicing what I'm practicing and still enjoying it, like it'll still be going on. And I think that's my approach. It's nice to be able to drink a tea and coffee and say that you made it and have all these experiences behind it versus having built infrastructure in technology and it's just like lines of code that I don't know if somebody appreciated or used or you never can see it
Yeah.
again. Once you let go, it's gone. But this is something that I can have right after this. Go drink a coffee.
Yeah. And it's so special to give, whether it's food or drink, to someone and just see
Hmm.
their face of how much they enjoy it. I
Hmm.
love to bake. So for me, it's baked goods and just knowing I gave someone a sweet treat. But for you, the cool thing is you're making all of these strangers happy who buy your product who you've never
Right.
even met.
And it trips me out. Yeah,
I love
for sure.
that. That's how you're putting your love and your
Yeah.
care and your passion out into the world.
Yeah, for sure. I care about people a lot. I don't showcase that very well. I'm very harsh, I would say, that I want the best for people, and that's not usually telling them what they want to hear, at least in my mind,
Honesty is
right?
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. But giving them something like this, there's no words, it just tastes good or it doesn't taste good. And there is a lot of care and love made put into each one. And not everyone is perfect, not every hug or whatever is the one for you, but maybe the next one will get better. I just mean like every drink, every iteration gets better and better.
Yeah.
So hopefully I can keep putting that energy in and it showcases with every new drink that somebody has. Yeah. And
It
it
will.
trips me out when somebody new tries it and is like in love with it. I'm like, it's so weird to me, like, who are
Yeah.
you? And uh, there are moments like I believe them, but like 50% of me doesn't believe them. And some people are like so enthusiastic, and I'm like, this must be fake. Like,
I mean, Josh, it just shows like how humble you are. And I feel like even though I didn't know all of these stories from your childhood when we met so long ago, I think
mhm.
that you always have had a very cool, calm, collected, not trying to be the center of attention type of guy. And it's led you to exactly what you need to do. So,
Mhm.
despite your humility, I would like you to say what you've been most proud of so far and what you want for the future.
Oh, I'm proud of every moment of this for sure. I think the biggest moment for me was just putting water into an aluminum can and getting that sealed. That was the first moment for me in my life. The first thing that felt consequential that I did on my own with no real support and just like figuring out all these details. Like nobody in my family knows canning. Nobody I knew around me knew anything about canning. And to be able to get that first steel can felt like this huge unlock. And it gave me confidence through all these. And there's been plenty of tears and plenty of moments of me hitting equipment and being really, really, really pissed off, unnecessarily pissed off, But that first moment taught me that, I can figure this stuff out. And every subsequent experience has also given me that experience as well of like, you can figure anything out, if you just give yourself a little bit of time. And I think also growing older has been cool too, because there's so many things in college that I couldn't fix. Now I have more willingness to open it up and check it out. And it's so cool to like grow older and understand the world a little bit more I've just been enjoying every part of it and just like everything I've learned, electricity, plumbing, systems, electronics, just even tea and coffee brewing and all kinds of types of brewing and like all the people that I've connected with, especially in the food industry, because that's just a large group of people who are doing it
Yeah.
purely for passion, like they're sure we mentioned a couple of groups of people that might have funding to be able to do that. It's truly a poor financial decision to throw all your money into food.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not a good idea to do that. But people are doing that all the time because it is something that brings so many people joy. It is something that is an easy way to share the love that you mentioned to other people, to share something new to other people. It's the oldest profession in the world. I think, people say that about something else, but I'm pretty sure making food was probably the first one, the first job. It's the easiest for immigrants to do in new countries than to share their cultures. There's so many things about it that's amazing. And just meeting all these people with their own expertise. Like I know tea really well now and I know coffee super well as well. But to top it up with a baker and learn about different types of grains and how that impacts their baking. I saw somebody that's measuring the amount of moisture in every bag of flour that he gets because that impacts the fermentation time or something specific. It changes the hydration level of that dough because the flour starts out as something else. So I'm like, wow, I wonder what the hydration of each batch of my tea or coffee is. And maybe that's something I can think about in the future. All these things that people are in their niches working on.
Yeah.
Still, that I think food has a lower barrier to entry in some ways. It's very hard in other ways. There's just so much expertise and so much chemistry and so much stuff that people are bringing to it and their own flavors. It's just like really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. We need the joy in food and bev. Like we cannot lose that. That's for sure. And we're not
Hmm.
going to. We all need it. So thank you for helping continue being part of that troop.
Yeah, of course. As best as I can.
So, one last question for you before we get to the
Sure.
world's best and hardest question.
Okay.
So, what is a piece of advice amongst all the many that you've learned over the years for anyone who wants to start their own business, start something new, whether it's in food and bev or any other industry?
I mean, if it's somebody else's money, just do it, just go for it. Yeah. But like real advice, I would say don't do it. It's actually the opposite advice. And this is advice that I got from a couple of people, and it's the advice that I've given other people as well, which is don't do it. Definitely don't do it. And if that response pisses you off and makes you want to do it more, then that might be something worth looking into. I've gotten a lot out of it, out of fulfillment and emotionally, but it is emotionally draining. It is physically draining. It is financially draining. I don't go to family events all the time. I miss so
Right.
many things because of this. And so you are making a lot of sacrifices. And that's if you're lucky, right? If your cogs don't make sense, if you're not able to scale, it can be much, much worse. If you still want to do it and you're being told not to do it and it's still something that's puttering in your brain, I would say like keep thinking about it, keep well, pushing at it and poking at it and then just go for it. Yeah. And be your devil's advocate first, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if
That
that's
was
good advice.
one of the
Not.
realest pieces of advice that I've ever gotten on here. And I love that, which is, it's the test. It is. It's like we were saying before, it can be so glamorized and just so easy for someone to be like, yeah, I should be an entrepreneur. Yeah, I should start a business. You need to think about every single thing. And can you go through that? And you
Right.
won't think of everything because things come up that we can never predict. But ask yourself, is that really it? Is this really it for me? Because it's a tough journey, but it was fruitful. There's a lot of
Oh, for
lessons learned.
sure. I think the other thing that I would add on is set a low enough bar of success. For me, it was like getting water into a can, and that was my success. And everything after that, like the fact that I even got chai into a can, I was told that's not even possible when I first
Wow.
started. And to do it myself is crazy. Just have something that you can hit that will make you happy, like shop, have it so that you're like, I want to make an amazing latte that makes somebody happy
Lots.
just once, And if you've hit that, every other latte after that that makes somebody happy is like a bonus. You know what I mean? You've already hit your goal. Like for me, it was getting chai into a can. Once I hit that, everything else after that has been bonus. Like I'm just sitting in bonus territory right now, and I literally don't care what happens in the future because I've already succeeded, you know? And once you have that, I think it lessens all the intensity of everything else. Like I don't want to make mistakes, but I'm not frozen per se. And I'm down to make mistakes, you know, because I've already succeeded. So I don't need each decision to be a jackpot, you know?
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
You've got such a good perspective on everything. And it just makes me, I'm so proud of you and I'm proud to know you. And
Thanks,
I just
Sarah.
can't
Yeah, I
wait
appreciate
to
it.
see what happens.
And
All
just for
right.
the record, that's just a
Oh,
moment
yeah.
of reflection. You know, it's always easy to
Yeah.
be like a sage in moments of reflection, right? But I've literally been crying and punching machines, you know, like I'm also a lunatic like everybody else, you know, so.
We all have to cry.
Right.
Uh, crying's important. So we are at the part in the podcast where a reminder for everyone, this is called the perfect bite because it's a bit of a perfect bite of the food and bev value chain and the
Hmm.
folks we talk to. But it's also because we have our own favorite flavors, memories, recipes, moments of something that you ate or drank that will never leave you. In your case, Josh, I'm going to ask this. What is your perfect sip? What is a drink that you've had that has always stayed with you and has just made you so happy?
I don't know if it's as much about the drink as it is the moment that it's in. And there's a lot of flashes going through my brain of moments, but like there's one sip of chai that I had right after I graduated from college. I did like a 6 months in Asia backpacking trip, and we went to Darjeeling. So I took like a 3 hour train. It stopped somewhere, and you have to take like a 4 hour jeep or something like that through the mountains. And I just remember we're slammed in this Jeep and I'm like sitting next to the driver, falling asleep onto him as he's driving through these mountain roads. And my buddy behind me slaps me to wake me up because if I fall asleep on the driver, we're going to crash, right? I have to stay awake. And I just remember taking a break and having a sip of chai in that moment. And this is just one of these moments. It's just that moment of being around the people that I was with is what made that sip amazing. I don't remember the chai being good or not. That moment of being around people, and that's what I'm trying to bring with this beverage. And like most of my like good moments with beverages are with other people. Like, I actually don't think like if I had an amazing coffee and I was just by myself, I don't think
Yeah.
it means all that much to me as much as having an amazing coffee or a tea or just water, even on a camping trip and having amazing water after hiking for 10 miles, you know, but it's really about the people around you in that moment. It's kind of a cop out answer, I think, but it's the one that feels the most true to me. Yeah.
It's not because, again, you very much took us there and it was really personal to you. And
Mhm.
it's very true. So thank you. Josh, this has been incredible. Can you
Thanks for
let
your time.
folks know? Thank you for your time. I'm just here to ask the questions. Can you let folks know which social accounts to find you on, the website, and where they can buy Sinwise Farms?
The easiest answer would be we're in specialty grocery stores throughout the Bay Area and Northern California. So most of the Whole Foods, Berkeley Bowl in the East Bay, Gus's Market in San Francisco. So a lot of grocery stores in the Bay Area. Right now, we're slowly transitioning to Kathas, Kathas. You
Well,
know,
hit up Sinwise Farms in the meantime and sinwisefarms.com. And everyone, this was Joshua Chemparathy's Perfect Bite. Thanks for tuning in to The Perfect Bite today. You can listen to future episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Thanks in advance for subscribing, rating, and reviewing. You can follow The Perfect Bite on social media at Perfect Bite Pod. Now go get something good to eat.